James and Owen.
Get started. First up, discuss acceptance of the Planning Commission's 2024 annual report from the Planning Commission. I see we have Chairman Scott Williams here and Dave.
Yes, Your Honor, they will take care of this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you can see, we've delivered you our annual report. Nothing has really changed as far as the membership goes. This year we had 10 regular meetings and 1 special meeting. Got a few site plans we approved. Not many cannabis centers anymore. Those have kind of dwindled out. A few special land uses we had to do. Other than that, a pretty easy year for us. So.
Oh, I would say you guys work real hard.
Oh, yes.
Don't cut yourself short.
Thank you. But then for 2025, I'd like to go over the 4th Street District for us, and then look at RV storage, and also go over street side yard fences. I know those are a big issue for the ZBA. They require special approval and stuff like that. So we're looking to see if we can maybe handle that with an ordinance to alleviate the, let's say, issue of bringing it every time. So it'd be on a,
Every time somebody wants a variance or something?
Exactly. If you have a corner lot, you need a variance by default. So if we can kind of streamline that, that would save time on the ZBA and make things easier for the residents too.
Well, cool. Save them some money too.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And then for some plans we want to go over is sidewalk gap analysis, land uses in industrial districts, and the Jefferson Avenue zoning plan. So kind of go over those and see if we can figure out a way to go about accomplishing that. And other than that, that's about it. Any questions?
Any questions for the chairman?
I have a question, I guess.
Go ahead.
Did the bylaws require that you do this
I
presentation?
believe the state law requires
State
it.
law doesn't? Okay. I was just wondering because the EDC is working on their bylaws and we were interested in maybe having a similar statement that they have to do a presentation for. But that's by law. This would.
Yes, we just put an update on bylaws in the last few months for the planning commission too, but this is
Okay.
state law requires it.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. It's nice to have this kind of input, and we had actually discussed before about maybe having all the boards, commissions, and committees come together annually just to have a meeting for introduction to the members, what the purpose of the committees are, and a calendar of the initiatives of the year so we can find some synergies maybe.
I know the planning commission is on here, we didn't get mentioned, but planning commission is trying to have a date they can host the council and ZBA in a meeting and talk, strictly confine it to land use issues where everybody wants to go in the city, so everybody's walking the same path.
Great.
Yeah, I know Jeff had discussed maybe finding some funds towards monies for a dinner for volunteers, because there's so many people in the committee that, or community that don't get paid for that, so maybe like an evening where there's a dinner and then each of the chairs could present what's going on for the year.
I think it's a great
Just a seed to
idea.
throw out there and see if it grows.
Yeah, because you guys set the policy, the planning commission is your main advisor on land use policy, so if they're acting on things, they might hear firsthand with the council where they want to go.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. That was easy. Great job, you guys, too, Scott. You guys, I like you guys.
Just stay up here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go away, Dave.
No.
Okay, 2.2, discuss the 2030 Vision Plan Committee Community Development. You want to take the lead on this?
Yeah, we've been working with Brian to try to understand how we should structure this entire process. Committees, subcommittees, what requires quorums, what doesn't. And we did meet, Randy, Brian and I met on a conference call to kind of iron out items, try to get at least a consensus where we should go, and I don't know if you wanted to take it from here, Brian?
Yeah.
I'll just have a question first.
Sure.
I think, as I see you pass this resolution out, did we do a resolution for the committee we formed in like May or June of '23? Did we do it by resolution, or did we just form the committee?
I think that there's, and Shane found it for us, October something of '22.
October of '22, it wasn't a defined resolution. Well, I call everything a resolution, but it was in other business. A motion was made on who was supposed to be on it. I will say, just looking at it, I don't know if outdated is the right word, but it does need some revamping.
Okay, should be redone at least, or updated. Okay, I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead. I just wanna get
Well, that
the
was
background.
one of the open-ended questions, is if we need another motion for the committee. We already know who the members are. We do have one open spot, but, so I think you were, Randy, going to take that, and I think based upon the last resolution in '22, I think maybe you said Dean had made that.
Dean made the
Possibly.
motion, Lynn supported it, appointed Chuck and a few others. And it directed the manager and me to work with that group and formulate basically what I envision a resolution, or, you know, the parameters. That never got traction. So I think you're right. I think then it got added to our cycle
Yeah.
of appointments and following each election. And that's when that would have been '23, right?
Yes.
In like December.
Mhm.
And beyond that, other than naming people.
Shane has some input, it looks like.
I'm sorry, I found the email that I sent you if you wanted to hear the original motion and support.
Yeah.
It was on October 17th of 2022. It was a motion by Councilmember Workman, seconded by Councilmember Blanchett, that an ad hoc 2030 Vision Plan Committee to be initiated with council members Ganaga, Norton, and O'Neill to serve as the steering committee and to direct the city manager and the city attorney to work with these council members to prepare and complete a plan to engage our residents and businesses in planning the city's future for the full council to consider as soon as possible, and further, that the appointment of council member Robbins as the alternate committee member be approved, and it was carried unanimously.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. But then that committee could have changed twice since then to be 23 and 24, so we have Councilman Webb and you're on now, right? Okay.
But the motion still stands then for the committee formation and support from not only community, but also administrative staff. Is that correct, or do we need a new motion?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, this is the point in time where we ought to bring all of us together, and by us, I mean, the two current appointees, the manager, myself, Dave, and we ought to bring forward what I would think is a revised resolution that has a lot of the details that weren't in I'm going to call it the Workman motion back in 2022. And
official name?
and that way flesh it out. But I know in our call last week, we talked about, we have a lot of the essence of what needs to move forward based on, and Dave's done a wonderful job of pulling together a history perspective, and you've got some, he's got the history, you've got the going forward vision, so I think it's just a matter of us getting all of these onto a single document, bring it forward for concurrence with the full body, and then launching forward into the series of meetings that we talked about, where we have kind of like a steering committee of the appointees and maybe others, guide the process. You in our conversation talked about specific areas that we need to focus on, and having subcommittees, if you will, that would work underneath the steering committee to, basically maybe even hold town hall sessions, planning sessions, invite members of the public, interested parties in, let them give their feedback, and then that feeds up to the steering committee that evaluates and creates a plan that evolves as a result of that input.
Yep, I concur, that's how the conversation went, and I think some of the outcomes from it. And that's why I provided this resolution, because I thought it was a pretty full and complete statement therein of what you were just explaining we would need to have to go forward. So this, as I understand, talking to Dave, was just a printed copy that was in a box of documents he gave me from the last few vision plan committees. So not having electronic copy, I figured I'd just make copies, and I forgot to have it for the agenda. So hopefully that's permissible to give you the hand printed copies. I don't know if the public needs a copy or not, but. So I would like something like this to be the ending document of what we come through from those conversations. So related to that, we still had some concern, or not concern, but a gap about who should be on the committee. Obviously, the Economic Development Corporation, the Planning Commission should be some group that's involved. Randy, yourself, the city manager, at least the two people now that are on council, and input from the rest of the council as well. But as you were mentioning, there'd be an executive group, if you will, which would be the council members, and they would be steering the community members that would be on the subcommittees of whatever. That still needs to be decided what topics that the vision plan will focus on, because the previous one was just huge and expansive, and I don't think we'll have enough finances as well as efforts from volunteers to complete that large of a scope. So once we have the committee members formed, then we will talk as a group about what we focus on, and then that'll come forward to the council and for any input. So those who I also will have to decide if someone from the school board, police department, other directors or department heads might need to be involved as needed. That's still yet to be determined. So we've already covered topic 2, which is if a resolution to form the committee is required. And then at some point, maybe not today, we'll have to figure out what the expected deliverables are from the committee. Again, going back to focusing on a limited number of areas. One area that I still have concerns or questions about is the economic development. So we had approved for the Bonner Group contract to provide, as I understand, a strategic plan for the economic development for the city. But I think, harking back to the conversations we had at the December study session, it was my understanding that they would be involved in the vision plan committee in some form or other parallel. So as I understand it, they're creating a plan for the city, but that plan would also be input for the vision plan. Am I understanding correctly?
Well, so the strategic plan is completely different than the vision plan, but the strategic plan could be a byproduct and used by the vision plan. So I don't see Mr. Bonner, Luke Bonner, on the vision plan committee, but some of his efforts and byproducts of what he finds through the economic strategic plan can then be used, because he said it right there, if, anything outside his normal scope would be charged at $325 an hour or what have you. So,
That is in the contract, but I rewatched the video from that night, and there was no statement of an additional fee or what that fee would be. It does say it in the contract, but he did clearly state that he believes, because the question was if they're going to be supporting efforts for the vision plan, he's definitely said we would work alongside, and he was talking about the vision plan committee, that process, which is the formation of the vision plan, to provide a lot of information and guidance to take the guesswork out of it. And he said that makes sense. So I think a lot of us here, including I've had a discussion with the reader, we're under the opinion that we're getting some support from them as part of this $32,500 strategic plan that's going to be involved. So if that's not the case, then how do we get a budget for involving them in this process?
Well, I can actually see you guys sharing data back and forth. Because I think the vision for the city is going to play a role in what the strategic plan they come up from the Bonner Group. But I was, just my impression was that the Bonner Group's gonna require a lot of information from the vision plan. Okay, this is the vision, what the city wants, this area, this kind of activity or business or whatever, and they would use that and input into their plan. But I can see going along where, I can see the two groups have to share a lot of data back and forth to develop I'll say the 20, 30, or 35, whatever it is, that's gotta be that's the big umbrella. Under that is the strategic plan from the Bonner Group.
Mr. Bonner and I had talked a couple times. Since the last week, and actually today we talked, and
Oh.
just to go through things and make sure everything he's feeding us, he said will totally support the economic vision of the city. So we've been sharing data and sharing items already, kind of visually walking around the city. So his report will provide a big, like the factual basis for a lot of where you want to go.
Okay, as I understand it, you said that'd be finished or completed in June?
That was the timeline that he gave us, so it was June, I think, was it early June was the timeline, because he had benchmarks of March, April, and May to do different meetings and things, and I think
Right,
June.
and that's a great point there, is because a lot of the vision plan is going to be input from stakeholders, from business owners,
Yeah.
community members, all the other people I just mentioned before. So if there's these discussions going on for the strategic plan, and then we have our group that's working on the vision plan, where do they commingle so that there's not parallel or duplicate efforts being done by, the Bonner Group that we're also doing? And so there's not miscommunications either. I mean, maybe the community has one direction we want to go, but the Bonner Group says something completely different, which makes, valid and complete sense, but the community's not aware of it.
Dave, did you share with the council, I know you put a timeline together for Bonner?
Yeah.
When we met with him, the initial kickoff meeting?
Yeah,
Was that sent to the whole group of, hey, today was the drive around the city with you and the mayor to look at all our vacant property and all of our different areas that,
no, it wasn't sent to the whole group, it was sent to,
yeah, we need to
Yeah.
send that out to everybody. so
but yeah,
they can
I
see
typed
that.
up all the notes that he had, the benchmark, so I can send that, I get that over to Jeff.
And we'll need.
Oh.
and-
Or all down, I'll go back and download.
And we're gonna interview, everybody in council will get interviewed by
Yeah.
him, and then 8 business people, some school board people. He wants to sit down with our interviews with, God, Dave, how many people was that? Like 15 people or 16 people?
Something like that.
So we're gonna pick out some business owners for him to speak to. He's gonna speak to council, he's gonna speak to
We
school
have to
board
come up with some
people.
names for him.
And he wants to speak to some residents that are involved. So,
So that brings up 2 points that I have also, is in the attachments, we included the vision plan schedule, and the other document was the memorandum, and that's in the actual agenda for tonight. Can you tell me who created those 2 documents?
Which
Yeah, we
document?
did.
They're in the
I didn't-
agenda for tonight?
I didn't get the back, I didn't get the back.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, the strategic 2030, I did that one where the kind of a Gantt chart.
Yep.
I did that early on, back in 2022 or 2023 was a committee first.
Okay. And then the memorandum, that's also included?
I
that page
did that
10?
one too.
That's page 10, yeah.
Yep.
Strategic Vision Plan 2030.
Yeah, it came
That's
out when
Dave.
the first committee first
Yeah.
came out too.
Okay, so
they
these
asked
were,
Dave to summarize.
Yes, this was originally in 2023, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
these came out then.
All right.
Okay.
So we did do a little bit of homework on that.
Yeah, we also came out with options in there to do whatever direction council wanted to go.
okay. So the point or the statement I'd make is I would like for the Vision Committee to be involved in any decisions or planning or documentation that's being done on this, separately from the group, right? So obviously this was done pre, Rita and I being involved, but going forward, if you're gonna make some kind of documentations or memorandums or, whatever, please just involve us.
Yeah.
So we're aware.
We haven't touched it since then either.
Other than I typed up my
Right.
notes for that one.
So we'll
meeting.
submit those notes of what we
Right.
spoke to
And that's
Mr. Bonner on.
The second point in the notes, it had mentioned that there's going to be, just a quote, on 127, the city creates a steering committee, which needs 5 to 7 business owners, plus the mayor, council representative, city manager, and the community development director. Can you tell me who is the council rep for that committee, steering committee?
You can pick anybody.
We haven't even, yeah, we
It would
haven't
have to be,
gone that far yet.
it would have to be the
Where
people.
are you reading that? I'm getting lost.
That's from the email, is that the email?
Oh,
This is from his
That's just
notes
my
from
notes.
that first
Yeah.
meeting.
okay.
Yep.
okay.
Yeah,
Yep,
I don't
so
have that here.
my intention would be, it would be both you and Rita, the two people on the vision committee.
Okay. So that's
Yep, mhm.
still in the works.
Yep,
So 127 was not a definitive date, that's just.
no, at the day we met,
that was the day we met.
yeah.
And when did that have to be, by the end of February? Is that what he wanted?
I know probably sooner than that, we were talking today about coming up.
Oh,
with
so these weren't meetings from the these weren't notes from the kickoff meeting, which was on February 24th? This was an ongoing list of meetings?
This
Notes?
one,
This was the meeting that happened on a Friday that you couldn't make, so I attended for you. That was from that meeting, correct?
yeah, that came,
Yep.
those notes come from there.
Okay, so from that, these notes stipulated on the 27th, there would be a steering committee, but you're saying that was a separate meeting on the 27th, where that was decided?
Unless I got a date, unless I put 127 instead of 227 in there.
Okay.
I might have, that could easily have done that,
So I won't belabor the
Yeah.
point, but
yeah.
this to me, it sounded like it was one meeting with all these bullet points of dates, milestones that are supposed to be hit.
Yes, yeah, if that's what it was, and the request from Bonner Group to help their team with
Yeah, they were just looking for
information.
some background information so they could get started.
Okay.
I think they've started with the data review.
Yeah. mhm.
It's just, they want to
Yeah, we
put
downloaded everything we had on our files to them, so they
From
got
us and
everything
from
we got.
SEMCOG, I think, and probably some
CoStar and-
DCC, yeah.
Okay. Are there any other documents that are electronic from the vision plan committee meetings throughout the years, or just the box that you gave me?
That box I gave you, I couldn't find anything electronic.
Yeah. I wish we had the budget to scan that all in and make it available for everybody.
I did, I think I may have scanned the, you know, you have the glossy, the summary. I believe, let me go with my system. When it first came out in 2022, I might have scanned the full vision plan.
Right, this is the resulting document.
Yeah.
Which is fine, we have printed copies of that we've been distributing at the meetings. And then I guess the last question would be is what resources are available to support the committee? You know, we talked, I guess there's going to be an additional budget needed for the Bonner Group, if we need support from them, which I know we will. That sounds like at $325 an hour, so 3 hours, it's going to be $1,000.
Well, I would, once you pick your committee, I guess I would do a budget for that, how many hours you think you're gonna need. You mentioned in an email, or you mentioned in this information that you'd be looking for like a part-time administrative person. I think that's what I read in the agenda somewhere.
No, I think that was from the Bonner Group, but we would need administrative support, yes, not a part-time person, but we need somebody to set up meetings, you know, photocopies, distribute emails, you know, set up rooms, those type of things.
Well, I guess what you would have to do would be put some kind of a budget back together and, you know, discuss it at this group or this level of, you know, how we're gonna fund that.
And we may find that as the Bonner Group is going through documents and looking at things and they're sharing information
Mhm.
with us, we may not need them in the future if they're giving us everything as they're going through. We might find what we need and be able to figure it out, so.
Well, that'd be my hope, if we're working
That would be our
parallel
hope.
together, that we're
Yeah.
being shared that information.
Dave did mention that there's sometimes collegiate students, like at Wayne State, they have a planning,
Interns.
yeah, interns, or, you know, some that you can pay, but they have a discipline in this area. I know sometimes they were looking for credits. You just have to work around their schedule, though. That's the problem. When you need them, they're not available, and when they're available, you don't need them, so.
The other issue, semesters end,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you lose who you got. It's when there's no, if it goes beyond semesters, you lose your continuity of who you have there, so.
Start over and over. right?
Yeah, so that was one too, so we'll just have to see, you know, and how would we, you know, potentially fund something like that. Dean, now, in the days, Mayor and Dean, you guys were around for the last one, did you have a budget put together for the vision, the last big vision,
What?
the booklet? Did you have a
The big
budget?
booklet?
Yep.
Yeah, they had a budget.
Did they? Okay.
We had
I didn't handle it, they
He had a dedicated, was that a special project, would that would have been Mark Drysdale?
No,
Or,
that, he was with 12. Was it 12 or 10 when we went over it again?
12, I think.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had a special project person at that time, working
Yeah.
on it with us.
But I do remember the first one, I mean, it was all, from what I remember, because I was on the school board at the time, it was all volunteers.
It was, but there was staff, we had more staff at the time,
Uh-huh.
and they worked on it. We didn't hire anybody for that, we had some staff.
Now we're dealing with contracted staff, so Dave's here 2 days a week. You know, in between his responsibilities, he said he would help out where he can.
Yeah.
But it's not a dedicated person. But
Well, I guess the best place, like anywhere, when you do a project, let's figure out a scope. How many hours is that? Is that 500 hours, 300 hours, 1,000
Yeah, this
hours?
is just I would think, before you develop that budget, you know, you get a meeting or two with your vision committee, and I think it's up to the committee to answer a lot of these questions on here, like who should be involved, what's the scope, I mean, that's all the decisions that the committee should be part of. And then once you've accumulated some data, and I know that it'll be tough, you're gonna have to encourage residents to participate, people who've run the committees in the past, encourage them to participate, give you some guidance. And I could actually see if, once you start collecting some of this data and you have a bunch of volunteers in place, then who manages all this data? I mean, it might be too much for one of us to do, or even you, then you would need some staff support. But I would think, you know, after a few months of collecting this input, you know, you might have a better handle on, you know, what the future is gonna hold. And then you can, you know, and obviously you can meet with the Bonner group, Luke or whoever, and get some input from them on, you know, what to look for as far as businesses. And because when we gave Luke a tour of the city today and pointed out a bunch of the open and vacant properties that we would some help with. And one of the questions was, you know, he'd ask us like, well, what are we looking for that? You know, type of stuff. So I think that's where the vision committee input for them would be from the vision committee, you know, like, I'll just one example, like, what would this community like to see as an end use for the landfill? And that would be part of the vision plan. It might not be part of his unless it deals with some new business that open there, you know, something I told him that would, you know, something that we could monetize, the use of that after it's closed. But it's all those types of things that would require, like, there'd be a lot of back and forth, but I don't think, see, his group steering yours or you're steering his, you just count on each other for some back and forth.
yeah,
Your Honor,
commingling involvement.
If you remember, we had some residents, the first time, the big one, we had some residents who were very motivated on this, that were involved. One was Joni Foley, she's not in town anymore. There were, do you remember who they were?
There are a lot.
There was, but I mean, there were
Yeah.
a couple that were completely motivated and were pulling things together through we're helping work through.
Dave, I have a general question, maybe we can check with Luke. Like, these vision plans, they happen all over. So there's gotta be some, like, you know, like an audit program. When you do an audit of a financial institution, there's a program. And you pick and choose out of the program what you wanna test and what you wanna do. There's gotta be like a boilerplate vision,
A template.
community vision checklist or program. They gotta exist, and that would take a lot of, you know, like, you know, vacant land or whatever. No, we don't have any of this, that. Yeah, but we have this.
There were two that you provided
I provided.
from different
Oh.
communities.
Oh, perfect.
I wouldn't call it template, but it was their finished
It was
vision.
there, I
Okay.
provided, I think I have 2 or 3
Okay.
examples, just to give an idea what topics they looked at.
You know, I'm just wondering if there's boilerplate vision
I-
plan outlines and you pick and choose out of the categories that seem to fit your community.
You know,
I mean, that's how we did audits, you
Yeah,
know, some,
typically, it's not so formulated like that. Typically, what I
Okay.
do is I did, like, we give Brian give
Okay,
examples other
okay.
places do, and they say, well, this is a good idea, this matches us, but this doesn't. You pick
Yeah.
and choose from different. Then you lay
Okay.
your topics out, then you,
okay, very
More
good.
in there.
That was just my question.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. But we do have a lot of great volunteers that have already come forward from the first coffee with coffee with council. And so we were going to give a presentation last week to just kind of spark community's interest, but I wanted to have this meeting first, and there were some other delays. So we'll go back and do some outreach to the community and get some more volunteers. But we have a pretty good base now, not 48 people, like I think was the base of the last one.
Well,
But
but
we'll
that's
get
a good
there.
point. You can build up to that.
Right.
You know, you
We'll
can
get
start
there.
out with, you find 5 or 6 solid people and get them to get some other volunteers. And it's a ton of work to do on your own, but
Yeah.
if you find somebody that, you know, has several business contacts, then they can encourage the businesses to participate. And I don't know if you want to be part of the committee, but at least they can get input. from
Yes.
all that.
Yes, as Randy was saying, we will have community meetings, town halls, where we'll get input from, you know, business community, from residents, school, you know, maybe PTA or, you know, whatever, school board, so. Okay. Rita, did you?
No, I think that covers everything we had talked about.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Your Honor,
Yes.
when people come forward at our council meetings with suggestions the city should do, should we have a form or something for them to fill out that we could forward to the, I mean, why are we even discussing it on the floor when we're creating a vision? That should be forwarded to the vision. It doesn't make sense. So should we have something to refer them?
To the vision committee?
Well, their information that they want to do. It might be a thought that needs to be done. And
Yeah.
if not, it can get looked at thoroughly instead of just, yeah, okay.
Put something at the podium that says, you know, who to contact for a vision committee, emails and names.
I'd like to add Brian's home phone number to that.
Please
Brian
do.
would love that.
I have it forwarded to your email.
Dave, we are looking for the third member.
Yeah, you do need a third one.
Good meeting.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Discuss bonding of capital improvements. This would be Ann's.
Yes, well, yep. Come on up, Ian. Yep.
One of them to just do the scope of the projects first, or the financing first?
Well, we'll go through why and how we're talking about this, so,
Okay.
and I'll be here to help.
All right. I guess since I've been here, I started hearing all these huge numbers, you know. We need to do a tunnel, that's $6 million. We need stuff at the landfill, that's $11 million and 20. It was just going, I could not grasp the whole picture of it. And I said, well, when's the last time, last time we did bonding was 2011? 2008 for some roads and some water mains. And, he gives you a list, the engineer, so Ohio would say, hey, because I've dealt with it in Grosse Ile, so I know exactly, that you have this list of millions and millions of dollars of water mains, millions of dollars of sewer mains. Like, how do you start the process? Like, we know for sure the Dewey Tunnel was hot on the list. So, by looking at that and bringing my experience here, we would at Grosse Ile, just because infrastructure is so huge, you can't take it on all at one time, and there's no money available to do it all at one time. So what we would do is do it in stages. So there'd be like water main to sewer main to get what they're trying to do, or there are a lot of water main breaks, a lot of sewer main breaks. Where are these concentrated parts? And we talked to Ohio, which was nice coming here. I was very familiar with Ohio and what he does. So we'd get together and we'd say, okay, what are your priorities? What are your next priorities? What needs to be done? What has to be done as far as main infrastructure, as far as roads, sewer, water mains? So I said, so what would that look like to you? So he put together a plan. And like I said, I had done this in Grosse Ile. You have to continue this process. Otherwise, you keep pushing it down the road, pushing it down the road, pushing it down the road, till it becomes a huge problem. So we'll start with the water and sewer and roads. So I said, and obviously when you're doing a sewer and a road, if you have a road that needs to be done, you want to do that at the same time. So it's very strategic of how you do it, so that you're not ripping up a road, putting on a road, ripping off a road, putting on a road. So I said, what would your priorities look like, and what would that look like to you? And so what you do is you do it in stages. So you just keep running that process. So probably in Grozeal, I sold probably $80 million of bonds in my time there, because that's the only way to pay for this stuff. And as soon as bonds start dropping off, you start doing more projects, because it keeps it going and it keeps the system to the way it needs to operate. So I did exactly that. I asked Sohio, C.E. Raines, what his project list would look like in the next 5 years for the water and sewer mains. So on page 1 of the in your
Page 13.
packet, would be at page 13. Okay.
And before she goes, Jeff Webb, our water, our DPW director, is in concurrence with these projects.
Yes.
This wasn't just between the budget and finance director and the city engineer.
No, we've.
He was
several meetings.
involved in these
Yeah.
projects as well, so.
Absolutely. So this is more of the scope of water mains, sewer mains. This, and you listed on here of what would be done and the roads that went with it. So currently, right now, we do have about $10 million in the water fund. Obviously, you could spend it all at one time and we'd be in a hurt, because down the road, we wouldn't be able to do anything. That would be all we could do. So by looking at that, I said, okay, well, let's bond out what we can, even though the money's there, but we can also maintain enough money to continue to do maybe one water main, what's $1 million per mile? So there would still be money there in the event that they go through and you want to, like I said, keep implementing more projects and updating your sewer and water lines, because how many miles are there underneath?
58, about.
58 miles that no one sees, right? But we have to maintain. So right now, the water is an enterprise fund. It is maintained strictly by water usage fees, which pays for the water, and we continue to raise the fees as what is GLEWA, or what we're paying for water. We put that on the residents. It's got enough that we need to start spending, because we are taking in, so it's time to start spending that money out there. And like I said, we've been talking about the DUA project ever since I walked in, and I'm sure it's been talked about there, that is a necessity, so that basements don't flood in the meantime if the water gets backed up. So currently, looking at this project, estimated about an $18 million bond issue. These bonds will be sold, and these are just broad estimates at this time. What happens is they go through a very extensive process. First, the projects have to be bid before it can go out to bond. Then what happens is they'll take the projects, then they sell the bonds on the market. It comes up with an interest rate, but prior to that, it has to keep coming to this council to approve every step of that. It doesn't get processed until you have final numbers, final say, final of everything. So just want to let you know, this is a big deal, and it will come to you several times before anything gets done. So looking at the water and sewer portion of it, it was, I got it actually in your packet. There is a bond amortization that would be done through our bond council. That was my estimate of amortization schedule, but if you look in the back, so I wanted to make sure that there are professionals involved. This is not me. I get a professional bonding attorney and a financial advisor. So they prepared my first estimate, and I prepared Excel spreadsheets that were equivalent. They weren't exactly, but again, we're showing this as what it may look like if this were the case. So now I know your pages are off than mine, right? So the document here is the actual, like a 20, so I got them to do a 20-year and a 25-year. The 20 years is least costly, but these are just the two options I had. In the meantime, we could look at other options. These were just for sample purposes. So what I said on the first page, so the water and sewer along with the pavement of Kosher, is that, am I saying it right?
Cloister.
Roller coaster. So they're projecting an interest rate of about 4.25% on this project for 20 years. And for the road portion, so we would use the money to pay for the principal and interest in the water fund by user fees that are already there. And there would be no intent to raise user fees other than pass on along what GLWA. So this is not an attempt to raise rates higher than what we need to. We just pass on what GLA assesses to us, we pass on to the resident. That's been consistent over the past years. And then we also get Act 51 money that would pay for the road portions of it. So we would bond out that future road money. And also, again, we want to leave enough money for street sectioning, and that needs to be done. So that process won't stop. So it's a way of getting stuff done and getting a lot done at one time and preserving the infrastructure as well as continue up and maintenance. So that was, is there any questions on the,
Yeah,
and I did, in your packet is a, I didn't just make these blindly, there are 5-year capital improvement, there's financial statements for the next 5 years, an estimate of where we'd be at and what fund balance would be and how this affected the actual budget, a projection.
I have a question, Ann, Your Honor, through your, so how many basements does the dual connection alleviate potentially flooding?
Over 25 basements.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the event. Big event, we may have more, but for now, the last event, we had 25 basements that flooded.
He had a plan. Would you like to do that now before I went into
No,
the
no.
other part? No?
No, we'll
Okay.
let him talk about that, but the Dewitt Tunnel's been on
Yes.
the books before I got here, I know that, so.
Yes.
It may be 25 basements, but I heard stories that it's neighborhoods, that it's gonna actually, not just 25 homes, but actual chunks of neighborhoods, that it's gonna alleviate flooding.
Again, depends on the event, so it may be the whole neighborhood in Huntington Woods subdivision.
Yep, that's what I heard.
Any questions on those projects?
Question?
And
Not
just,
now.
in your honor, just, and also, why now, or with the timing? Well, we're working on budgeting, right? And we know that, this is the time that, we're gonna talk about the next project, but, the landfill, we have to figure all this out, so we have to do our job of planning to update our infrastructure without any transfers from that landfill, so.
Right. And also, to do this, you need your statement, you need a qualifying statement from our financial statements, and we had a clear financial qualifying statement this year. So you do that so that you can get a better interest rate when they go to somebody else.
And I know you said we may be improving our bond rate. What is our bond rating, and what role does that play in the
Right
interest
now,
rate?
it's a double A minus, but they haven't really did a full statement, a full overlook, because we haven't sold bonds in so long. So we can maybe update that, but that's what it is. It's on Moody's, it's a double A minus. Anderson Corp.
You mentioned the interest rate, so this interest rate could go down?
It could go up or could go down when they
Yeah.
go to sell it. And in the event that it falls below a certain threshold, we can refinance, just like your house. And I've done
Yeah.
that before. Like if it's really high and it suddenly we get a boost in, we can actually go back and sell it at a refinance it. It's a thing. So, and like I said, I've done that too. So they do watch it. They're like very.
You have one more to talk about.
Yes, and the next one, again, the scare of, okay, we're gonna do all this with the landfill. I think it's, since the last vote, it's been coming to the attention that the wastewater treatment plant is a priority. And if we get that done, which is, again, required by Eagle, so now this is a mandate, pretty much, an unfunded mandate that they put upon us. That we estimate could be as high as $10 million. We don't think it will be there, but again, this is just to throw it out there, what it would look like. And again, we'll do a 20-year payback period, and we're gonna have to sell these two separately, but you'd like to do it at the same time, because the cost will be less of preparing the documents. But we could even do 15 years on this. This isn't set in stone. This is just kind of where we're looking at and what the interest rate is. The interest rate will be higher, estimated at a 5.5%, because this is a profit-making entity. They're not considering it tax exempt. They're not considered, because it is truly intended to make a profit, so that it's a different entity. Like, I did some at airport. An airport was the same type of thing. It becomes taxable because it's really, the intent is to make money. So that interest rate would be higher. At that point, we're looking at, we know we don't have any money available in the land preserve right now. So everything that we do have is sitting there as being for the line of credit. So that's all in reserve.
Closure, post-closure fee.
Post-closure money, so we don't have any available money. This would be the only option we have to do this at this time. Again, by doing this, we're gonna save in other costs. Again, I did that 5-year projection. Now that we know that it's going in the direction of closure, I took down the revenues, but you can see the actual payment would be about $840,000 a year. If you look at the stuff, a lot of that stuff will fall off, the surcharges, and the hauling cost, a lot of that would come off, so.
Yeah, what would we save in the hauling
yeah.
cost if
So-
once this plant's operational?
Yeah, currently, a good number is about 400 grand in the hauling costs,
Yeah.
and then we pay $125,000 a quarter to DUA for surcharges,
Mhm.
because you'll hear it from our engineers that the quality of this water treatment plant will allow us to,
People could bring stuff to us.
well, no, first to depose to the Franken Poet. That's how clean this leachate will be. It's a special permit, but there's many of them in the state of Michigan, so our engineers feel comfortable that over time, a couple of years that after operating it, that we'll be able to save that money to DUA and save the money, of course, hauling, because we won't have all those gallons to haul. So that's the two savings. Those two are almost, that it is that
Right.
payment.
It is that payment.
So, and then the side of it, and Ari and Jennifer from Tetra Tech will talk about it, but we would build our water treatment facility large enough to not only do our stuff, but actually be able to accept other people's leachate. Now, we're not talking about toxic things, hazardous toxic materials, but there's things as simple as Coca-Cola. They can't pour that down the drain anymore when it expires. They have to take it somewhere. So why can't we treat it? So, things like that. So, they'll talk about the design. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but the engineers
Well,
are...
we'll have savings in one area.
We'll have direct savings in one, and then a chance of revenue generation in another. I mean, it would be designed with proper ingress, egress, for truck traffic and the whole bit, you know. So, those details will be very soon, right after we're done with this item. And again, it's budget time, we have to bring this to you, so you have to see it. It's nothing more than an illustration right now. That's all it is, but it's to get you thinking, should you see some of this in the budget package, this is why, this is what we're thinking. Any questions?
I'd say a quick one.
Yes.
And this was done in Excel?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and if you look at the comparison, they do come out within a couple $1,000.
Okay, but I was just looking at, it said, you know, the date of the payment, you know, increments, that we're not making $1 million payments every month.
No, that's
Okay.
annual.
That's annual.
Yeah.
Because it's got 20 years and it goes up to
You're like, oh.
December, September of 2026.
Right, no,
All
no.
right.
Those are
So
annual.
those are annual payments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Illustrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know you got those last week, you've had the weekend to chew on it, and you'll have more time to look at that, should you have any additional questions, but don't be shocked to see budgets put together based around these assumptions.
But this is going to be debt we're taking on that we normally haven't had.
Correct.
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 but a means to pay for. I mean, definitely with the water and sewer, and we just talked about that, there are means to pay for it. It's not gonna be taxes. We're not raising taxes at all. There's enough to pay for these revenues.
That just shows the grace period for having the landfills over. This is what we would have done all these years if we didn't have that income, correct? Okay.
You would have no other choice. I mean, they are, I'm not gonna scare you, but they are full backed from the city of Riverview, the general fund, but I don't see that there wouldn't be enough to cover it.
So if I,
Great. Go ahead,
I did
Brian.
have a question there. So if it's not coming from increased taxes or rates, how are we paying it back?
The water is from your user fees, and the money's already there, as I said, and Act 51 monies that we get from the state of Michigan. And then the landfill will be from either the reduction in surcharges, and we also do have the royalties that we haven't applied anywhere.
Okay. The first one you
So-
said is user fees, is that for water?
Yes,
Rates?
yes, those are water and sewer rates, yep.
And we've always had our rates where we have enough, we charge enough to cover our
Cost.
infrastructure
And,
costs.
Yeah, not just the purchase of water, it's all
Right.
infrastructure, all employees, and cost too, for
Mhm.
water mains that are little in nature, not these big, huge. It's your resurfacing, it's everything.
Because I,
Yeah.
just from what I remember the past is, with our water, and water's expensive everywhere. But we've charged enough to maintain that infrastructure for years. We haven't had to bond. We've paid for
Right.
it through the user fees. We've built up enough where some of the big projects came up, we could
We
just pay
paid for it
cash
through the
for it.
landfill. We paid for it
Right,
through the
the landfill,
landfill. We
but
didn't
you-
pay through it.
Through the,
We did not
Okay.
do user fees, and we did not raise the water rate.
mhm.
Oh,
We used money from the landfill to pay for many of those projects.
Okay,
Big
yes.
ones.
The
Like
big-
we're
the
doing
big ones,
sewer
the big ones,
lining,
yeah,
but
yeah.
we haven't, when's the last time you actually did a full water main or sewer main?
I did the water main last year.
Like one, but nothing. yeah,
But Councilman Workman's right.
One per year,
The
yeah.
bigger ones, we had the money to do
We
that.
paid cash.
And now we don't have that.
But I will always say that City Manager Workman did have 3 years in a row where he raised the water rates 20% each year, which I still don't know how he's not shot and still alive.
We were working on loop mains at that time.
Right,
Money
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
coming at
right.
the landfill at that time.
Okay.
Right. No, the rates were, you,
They were
I hear it,
appropriate.
everything that you have, every year, I know people don't want to hear it, but you have to because that infrastructure is so expensive to maintain and you can't just keep putting it down the road, so.
Okay, well, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
All right, Ari and Jennifer. This is number 2.4. Presentation of Riverview Land Preserve Leachate Treatment Project by Tetra Tech. Ariel, it's just a few slides, right, Ari?
Yes. 2 handfuls.
Can I turn the lights down up here? Is there-
No, I'll fall asleep.
Set the mood.
Just give me a second to get the computer going again, and I hope I'll get started already.
Bring me the dog.
Just for the record, to be straight, I would have had this presentation in the packet. However, they were still figuring this out, and it was if we were going to be ready for tonight or not, but you'll see the dates where we're going to be forced to be ready to show tonight.
Oh, forced, I caught that.
So, good evening, everybody. As I said, it's a very relatively short presentation to just explain how we come to what needs to be done with the landfill and leachate treatment system, and how we evaluate what makes the most sense and how the direction to go. I assume that by now everybody knows that leachate, the wastewater is collected from the landfill. It is mostly coming from stormwater rainfalls, melts, and the composition that you see there. It basically everything that's in the waste that people put out in the curb that's got landfilled is in there. It includes organic materials and also unmanufactured organic components. And the last one, especially on the list that you see, the last one, the PFAS, they're right now driving essentially the whole project here, unfortunately. The reason that this is happening is right now that you need to manage with leachate, and the way we got to this is the Clean Water Act tells us that we have to treat wastewaters to a certain level before they can be discharged. They come down to the state. In this case, Eagle gave their permit to a downriver water authority to accept wastewaters and then discharge them to the stream, to the waters of the state. And DUA is performing what's called a local limits evaluation, where they look who is discharging to DUA, what is in their permit, and from that they can see what they treat, and they can then allocate basically contaminants levels. So they're administering what's called an industrial pretreatment program. And they issue the permit then to indirect discharges like Riverview. Indirect meaning we're discharging via DUA to, let's say, a stream, compared to a direct discharge, and that's what Jeff mentioned before, we can do later on, I'll mention that, become a direct discharge or basically bypassing DUA. So we're collecting approximately 100,000 gallons per day of leachate. About 40,000 are being treated for phenols and PCBs. 60,000 are monitored and discharged without treatment currently. And all discharges are right now monitored for PFAS because on the PFAS maintenance management plan. And for the service to go to DUA and discharging, the sewer fee per year is about $550,000 just to discharge to DUA, get the treatment, and DUA then discharging water into the waters. So we looked at a couple of treatment options that are available, knowing about that we not only have to treat for PFAS, but there's organics, nitrogen, organic carbon. We talked about PCBs and phenols. So there's a number of treatment technologies out there that you look there. A couple fell very quickly off the buy side. It's, for example, biological treatment is very involved, very complex. You have to basically have a staff of operating this, so several people, and you would not be able to meet, for example, PFAS limits. Physical chemical treatment, you would have to patch it up so you can get the metals. And then you would still have to come up with a third treatment train to remove PFAS. So that's the first three, for example, would have to come together to meet PFAS. So what we did at the end, knowing where the permit is, but then also trying to project where the permits are going to be in 3, 5, and 10 years, obviously we're going a little bit into tea leaf reading. So we focused on three technologies essentially. Absorption, which is using activated carbon and ions to absorb materials out of the leachate, which is very good at chlorides and PFAS. Reverse osmosis, without going right now what the technology is, but reverse osmosis can remove essentially everything that's in wastewater, and that's where you see all the green check marks. Evaporation is also very good, but keep in mind that the landfill gas is right now allocated to the RNG plant, so we don't want to rob one from the other. But there is a potential for using waste heat from the plant later on, and I'll come back to that. And the third option is foam fractionation, which is, again, going to help very well with the PFAS, but is not going to manage all the other parameters. And then together, for example, absorption and or foam fractionation, you would still have to discharge to DUA to get the treatment for the organics and the metals. So there's one treatment process all that you see here that's reverse osmosis. It can meet in one single process all of them, but it also comes at a cost and has a drawback on that with that. So we looked at the costs. You see on the top line we summarized the capital cost. And as I mentioned, RO is good, but it comes with a price on the capital cost. On the other hand, it has an slight advantage on the operating cost, because the operating cost, remember that I talked about roughly $500,000 in discharge fees to sewer. With RO, you can eliminate them, and the operating costs are also lower over time because you have a different kind of process using less chemicals, using though more energy, but the energy is accounted for here. So when we looked into that, we looked at the timeline how the landfill is going to develop and predict the cash flow that you see in the lower part summarized. So we know that council decided to close the landfill in about 8 years of airspace is left. Those are the green squares. And then we estimate about 2 years of landfill closure. And this is relevant because if you're looking, for example, something like reverse osmosis where you're creating a concentrate, we need to dispose of this concentrate. And the cheapest way to dispose of concentrate is put it back in the landfill. But when you close the landfill, this option goes away and you have to start hauling. So actually what we did in the cash flow analysis, we assume for the first 8 years as the landfill is open, we can use on-site disposal, and then for the remaining operating periods of the treatment facility and you would have to haul it off-site. And then I'll come back to this in a moment. So we prepared those calculations, came up with a net present value based on those assumptions for all those options that you see on the chart on top. And then we saw that the calculated net present value. And you see that the three options are relatively close, but there's a slight advantage to RO. And what this model right now is not considering right now is, for example, the option that once as you close the landfill, leachate generation will reduce, and you have spare capacity that I just mentioned, you could then manage as a resource for treatment as a service. So when we then calculate those costs on a marginal level, you see they're roughly like 5.5 cents per gallon. And the alternative to all those, so any treatment system that you would do here at the site would be hauling. And then for this, we assume right now that the cost is going to go out roughly 20 cents per gallon. And if you compare that on the annual operating cost or the NPV, you see that this blows all the other options over the water with $7.5 million in operating costs just for hauling to go to another treatment facility. So we have completed a pilot study for reverse osmosis on site using leachate from the landfill. You see in the middle of the jars, the dark tea-colored ones, those are the leachate. We've run them through a treatment system that does a dual-stage RO with a high-pressure system. And you get at the end the water that's you to the right, the clear water. The clear water, you see all the parameters meet the current permit. And as far as we can predict what is going to be the changes over the next couple of years are going to be also meeting future permit limits.
I don't mean to interrupt, but our current water facility handles the bottom four, right? 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
4?
Correct.
Yes,
But remember, the current one that you have only treats about 1/3 of the leachate.
correct.
So it has a capacity issue.
Yes, it
But,
does. But I'm just saying that we do take care of phenolics, TSS, total phosphorus, and VODs.
Correct.
Yep.
And we looked at what's in the current permit, what PFAS requirements are being added for those three parameters, and we try to anticipate what other parameters might be regulated in the future. So when we did this pilot, and this is just a summary of the results, not to fill over the chart with too many numbers, and again, when you look at the effluent column, they're all between what's called below detection level. And essentially, you would meet direct discharge criteria, meaning you could bypass DUA and discharge to a local stream. And this is not something that is new here. We're doing it in other places. We have a project up in the UP in Marquette that is right now actually in construction to take advantage exactly of that the treatment provides an effluent clean enough for direct discharge, allows you to eliminate the sewer service fees in the case here in Riverview. And the jar on the extreme left, that's the concentrate. That's the where all the contaminants and the leachate come up together. It's about 10% of the volume of the treatment. So if we're treating 100,000 gallons per day, about 10,000 gallons of this material would come out. The concentrate, you could, for example, use waste heat from the RNG plant to reduce the volume further, which would then later lower your operating costs on the disposal for your site when the landfill is closed. It would be another investment, obviously, in certain piece of equipment. But what we haven't looked at this point yet, because we tried to be very conservative, we only looked at if you had to haul the concentrate off-site. And then we could later on look into a cost-benefit analysis for using waste heat, but we'd have to talk with the developer of the RNG project first on that. So what we're recommending is for a high-quality effluent that is relatively future-proof, that meets the current discharge criteria to DUA, that also would and then does already and would also meet the EGLE direct discharge criteria, so you can go and realize another cost reduction of for the sewer service fee, which is $550,000 a year right now. It's very effective removing the compounds that are present in leachate. You don't need an operator. It's a relatively simple system because it's only one system. It's not a collection of sub-treatment systems. As I said, we looked into on-site disposal of the concentrate while the landfill is active, go off-site after closure. In the future, you can consider, as I said, waste heat for evaporation or reduce the volume. We're calling it future-proof because it has a very good likelihood that none of the other contaminants that are coming out there will not be targeted by that. And then it has the option to provide treatment as a service, and then become a revenue source. And that we have not considered that is here in this analysis again, because we tried to conservative. And if you do the landfill closure, leachate generation collection is going to go down. You're going to progressively increase the capacity that you would have to for that option.
Yes, and just one point to that, that was Councilman Workman said, what's next after PFAS? And that's why it was very, if you're going to spend this kind of money, let's spend it to treat what's next. And, you know, we're going to treat it for 30 years, right? I mean, we have to close and maintain the landfill for 30 years past the closure date. So in his presentation, that's 38 years. Reverse osmosis is one system that can, we believe that will do that.
The reason we have 38 years is because we had the 8 years of active landfill, and then we took the 30 years post-closure period. So now we come to scheduling. DUA and Eagle are expected to, that the permit that was issued is going to be, need to be comply with that by the end of May. So we looked at a way of what are the activities that would happen on the design, on the construction part, to make happen if we want to by next spring to be in a position that we can start treating that. That's the schedule we came up with. You see that part of the design efforts and part of the construction efforts have to happen concurrently. Then we think it's likely to achieve that the goal of being operational by next spring. So what does it mean if we need to be compliant by next spring? I showed you here. We talked about the cost when we had the bond discussion before for about $10 million. That's roughly where we stand with our estimate at this time. But what happens if you're not ready by next May? There's a whole slew of actions, compliance and enforcement actions that DUA will most likely or could take, being supported by Eagle. And what I think you see here, there's cost that is associated with that. You suddenly see the leachate hauling cost that before had as an baseline comparison is suddenly becoming a real number here because on top of all the other considerations. And I think one of the other things to consider here is if you don't do that, you might later on be pushed into a position where you have to put the solution that is not the most preferred one right now. So when you enter the administrative consent order, mandatory timelines, when you start looking at the equipment lead times, there might not be the option to go for RO because you need to be compliant within 6 months, 8 months, who knows what the number is. So our thinking is that the advantage right now, we still drive the bus, but once you're under an ACO, Eagle is on us, then somewhat of this degree of freedom to make your own decision what you want to do is going to be more challenging. So that's what we put together. I said a short presentation. I'll take any questions now.
I just have a quick one. Well, compared to the other methods, what is the cost of maintenance of the reverse osmosis system?
We have included that. Let me go back. Sorry, close the laptop prematurely. We had if you see the annual operating cost, the second line from the top, that's where we estimated the cost, which is the staffing, the equipment, the power demand, the maintenance and repair. Those are all calculated in here. What we did, we calculated the capital cost for building a facility. Then we discounted that over a period of time, 20 years, with a 5.5% interest rate that you had before. We then calculated also the annual operating cost, and those then went into the cash flow analysis.
You said that's lower because there's less staff involved?
Yes. The chemicals are different, the operations are different, so this all reflected in the lower annual operating cost.
Ari, did you include, I do know with the reverse osmosis, when we were looking at it on the committee, that there is a waste that we have to dispose of.
Yes, so that's...
Is that included in this?
Correct. The disposal of the waste is included here.
Yeah, and Councilman Workman, I'm not speaking for Ari, but for 8 years, it can go back into the landfill, and then after that, we'll have to dispose of that.
Yeah.
But in theory, it should be a lot less, because the landfill will be closed, so we should have less leachate when the landfill's closed. and then the leachate that we take in as a service, we will charge them a fee to dispose of that. So it'll be cost plus, so we would get that fee back.
To dispose of what?
Whatever we wanted, what we decide, if we decide
Gonna be a
decide to
sludge.
take in outside affluents or whatever. Coca-Cola.
Now,
If we had a contract with Coke to process all their expired Coke, whatever is left over and needs to go to another landfill, that would have to be calculated into that fee. Yes, Steve?
I've lost my train of thought.
I told him to drink the Coke.
Oh,
What I got from your question is that you're asking about the concentrate, the waste of the RO system. Yes. The disposal cost is included in the annual operating cost.
Okay.
And we assume that's going to be hauled off at those 20 cents per gallon. So this is accounted for. We have not accounted scenarios that would improve on that. For example, that you could evaporate that using the waste heat from the facility, which reduce the volume. We have not considered options, for example, that you might be keeping parts of the landfill open. So we try to take a conservative approach, 100,000 gallons a year of leachate, assuming no reduction in leachate generation, even though we know that's going to be happening, and accounted that for in the all calculations.
Now, I don't know how you could calc it in, but we've dealt with the haulers.
Mhm.
The one hauler now that we have. Soon as the PFAS comes in, they're gonna jack the price up again. We all know that. I mean, they're not gonna continue to haul, even though they deal with PFAS now, when they haul what we ship off, they're gonna increase the price. So did any thought to that, or is that just something we're gonna save in the future?
We have what we did for the analysis, assumed a slightly higher price for the disposal on a per gallon basis than what is, because all this was done in 2024 dollars.
Yeah.
So we use a slightly higher cost. I think the cost right now is 13.5 cents per gallon. We increased it to 20 cents per gallon to capture that.
You think that's even close?
It's very difficult to predict the future. I'm sorry to say that.
With our experience in the past, it's probably gonna be higher than 20 cents, I would think.
So we have seen a couple of different things. We have seen places where certain haulers will refuse to take it because it contains leachate, but we also started seeing that certain haulers started to recognize this as a business opportunity. And what I think what might happen there is that you initially might see a price increase when there's a few opportunities, and it over time will decrease. So the thinking is here that, for this period of 30 years, that this is at our best ability right now to predict an average cost.
Any other questions? I see you were shaking your head. Go ahead.
Well, I don't agree with the incendiary method of disposing of them. You're just releasing those molecules into the air for us to breathe, so. But that aside, PFAS remediation is still an emerging technology, correct? In the industry?
No, it's for leachate treatment. It's not emerging technology anymore. It's happening more and more because the states require that, and it's not only in Michigan; it's other states as well. The technologies that we looked here are demonstrated that they work on other sites, both in Michigan and out of Michigan. That PFAS is still considered an emerging contaminant. I think the reality is here already. It's basically a contaminant like all the other ones. It's not just that it's because of low concentrations, and it is not reactive biologically, so you cannot use biological treatment, for example, that you have to go to different treatment level.
By biological, are you ruling out bioremediation using funguses or algae or other types of organic chemicals to destroy that PFAS?
I have not seen any research or any case studies that show reliable destruction or even immobilization of PFAS using biological, which is microbes, fungus, whatever you look at this.
Because there was articles I was reading today on the National Institute of Health
Yeah,
and
I read those
Environmental
over the
Health.
weekend.
So, yeah, so that's why I was asking if you can still consider it emerging, because there are new technologies that are not only coming out, but being evolved and improved, such as these biologics. I think the mayor and Rita had heard at the town hall for Congresswoman Dingle that there was biological remediation that's being developed or already a solution.
There are biological treatment systems that are trying to capture this, immobilize it, but they don't work on leachate, because leachate is a collection of a lot of number of constituents. If you have contaminated groundwater, some of those might be able to immobilize that, but what you actually have with PFAS, when you go into a biological system that is aerating, which is most of our wastewater treatment is doing aerobically, you have certain compounds that are called precursors that are actually then transformed into terminal PFAS. So depending on what research you're looking at, I'm not familiar with one that you're looking up there, you might see a reduction in certain PFAS as the precursors, but you see then an increase in those research results of the terminal PFAS. So you have those components that are somewhat reactant, but they don't degrade, they just convert it into this PFAS, which is a terminal one, and then it's not biologically reactive.
If I'm understanding correctly, there isn't a bioremediation that will totally destroy the molecules of the PFAS?
I'm not aware of any one of those. The technologies that work on destruction of PFAS, those I would consider emerging, and there we're looking at incineration, we're looking at ion beam, you're looking at technologies that UV, no. UV, no. You need, not even if you would go to what is called advanced oxidation, where you use very strong oxidants, would be able to break this bond that exists between the carbon and fluorine, because that's the strongest chemical bond that you have to break apart. And the amount of energy that needs to be delivered, very pinpointed, is very challenging to achieve with UV, because the energy is dissipated. When you think about UV in the context of leachate, you saw the colors before. If you treat leachate aerobically, some of the color remains, it will absorb that. We have just tested it on a site in Wisconsin to confirm that again. UV is actually then absorbed, reduce the transmittance, becomes less effective. There is unfortunately, and we're looking for that still, believe me, we haven't given up yet. But as we're standing right now, and there is no technology that has the advantages of those that we discussed here right now on the tip of it. But right now, those are the technologies that are out there, and if you have to comply, you have to kind of go with the technologies that are proven today. And unfortunately, I don't think we have the luxury to wait for 3-5 years for a breakthrough in those.
This has to be in place by May?
That's the understanding as the issuance of the permit by DUA and the compliance by end of May. There might be, depending on Eagle endorsement, there might be a few more months added to the end.
So you recommend the reverse osmosis because it has the largest coverage for going forward?
Yes,
Okay.
and yes.
So for the first 8 years, we'll put the sludge back into the landfill, and after that, we're going to figure out something
Correct.
other than burying it.
As long as it's open.
So,
Yeah.
so just for the record, Jennifer, myself, Kevin, Sis, we traveled to the west side of the state that has a reverse osmosis, and we saw this in action, and it actually works. And as Councilman Workman said, well, what's the next substance going to be? And reverse osmosis work that as well. Tetra Tech is currently in the midst of constructing one in Marquette. So this summer, this fall, I'm suggesting all of council to go up there. We make a trip to Marquette, take a little flight out of Metro and get up there in an hour and check it out and then come back. And huge investment. I understand too. I mean, it's huge. But, you know, his last slide scares me more than anything when they put us under a administrative consent order and our hands are tied and we can't do anything but pay $7.5 million a
Very
year.
short turnaround period to have a system in place for the landfills that don't already.
They do that all the time.
All the time.
They just did it to us with, what was the one previous? They just dumped on us last minute.
BODs
It might have been, I can't recall.
or the PCBs?
Might have been PCBs.
Well, we've had a couple, you know. I don't remember.
I'm not talking to you.
Well, here's the thing. They've been chasing this PFAS down for a while, and we were actually expected earlier to adopt and have a solution. We're lucky right now it is when it is, because Ari, the person from Duo who comes out and tests our water all the time, we keep trying to ask them when, oh, we got it, and they finally approved the number of what we're gonna be subject to, and so now, it's all go. I'm just waiting for the certified letter that says you have till this date to be treating this or else.
So if we go this way, where would the plant be, and what size of plant are we looking at?
We have it right now, a couple of designs. There's one at, what would that be? That would be the far east, the far southeast corner, or across from the borrow pit. We gotta look at the cost of running the lines, what makes the most sense to get the leachate pipes there, and, I mean, it's gonna, there's two sites right now that are, that looks to be most feasible on cost and collecting all of the leachate.
What we would like to do as one of the next steps is do a conceptual layout to see the traffic flows, how the vehicles would get in and out.
Correct.
The size of the building, there's some tankage that needs to be built together with that, and then see where it would fit in on the constraints, like you said, the southeast corner and the one at the borrow pit. I think we're at the point where we would like to do that, because the next step is, if I go to the schedule, sorry, this direction. We think that we need to start working already on the conceptual design. Part of that is already done on the treatment side at least, but now we need to go out and do the geotech site investigation, identify the location, do geotech site work. I think what we have to do next is really start working on major equipment specifications, because some of the equipment, especially the key equipment, the RO system, has a 10-month lead time. So we need to be really able to order that equipment so that we have it in time for installation to early in 2026, so it can be installed, integrated, tested, and then commissioned later on. So that's why we tried to come up with a schedule that's compressed and has an overlap between the design and construction phases, because we know the different components that need to go into that.
I have a question. Do we currently have a pretreatment station for PFAS?
We have a wastewater treatment system that takes care of those bottom four right now, but not PFAS.
All right.
And there was an idea to put foam fractionation in there and add it to that, but it won't take care of the next one, and by the time we invest all that money, we'll be done. It'll be like,
We have to rebuild the building.
yeah, have to rebuild it.
Jennifer has something to add.
Yes.
Something Councilman Webb said, I just want to clarify. The evaporation is not to send emissions into the air, it's to concentrate the liquids. So all of the contaminants would stay in the liquid concentrate, would just reduce the volume. So we're not adding.
So you're burning the sludge?
No, the idea is to evaporate the water, so that, because what the cost, the expense of hauling is the volume of water. If you can reduce the volume and concentrate the solids that you saw in this image, and this before about the concentrate, then you have reduced hauling costs. That's where the benefit comes in. If you can
Okay, so
evaporate.
it's not to eliminate.
No, the idea is not to burn it, it's not an incinerator, it's to evaporate the moisture that's still in the concentrate,
Right.
so that the end what you're hauling is a smaller cost.
Right, so a secondary pollutant has to be taken off-site.
Yes. But that's I think can be done one after the other. I think the most important part is to take advantage, build a plant, use the landfill as long as it is open for disposal, and then look into the next steps.
Okay. The reason I asked about the pre-treatments facility is in April of 2022, there was an agenda item to authorize the construction and commission of a leachate PFAS pre-treatment facility for the Land Preserve for Clearwater Services in the amount of $586,000 with a 10% contingency of $58,000, so a total of $644,000.
Yes, it got designed, it got to drawings, and then we figured out that foam fractionation was not going to take care of the PFAS, or, as Councilman Workman asked, for the next chemical or contaminant. So we stopped. I think we put in $50,000 into the plan, and we stopped it instead of making a $586,000
So that
error.
money wasn't spent and there
Oh,
was
no.
resulting pre-treatment.
Well, we spent, for the engineering design, we spent some, because they did the drawings about renovating our plant, knocking a wall down, making it bigger. And at that time, it was foam fractionation. That was the big.
Yeah, and their proposal was based on, they wouldn't have to redo the building, but then as the design progressed, it became apparent that that was not the case. so the costs were just exploding, and it was decided not to go ahead with it.
We finished this project was cut short with this vendor roughly after the pilot study test, and when they started sizing equipment and trying to place it within the existing structure, and we started seeing
We
it.
nixed it. We did spend for design in the bench tests, we had to pay for that, because you can't get away from that. Just like, you know, you have to pay to make sure it's gonna work, so that's what we call a bench test, so we had clean water up there, so we know it works, so.
And since we had those results, for example, that's why we only did the RO pilot, because we had the results from their pilot, so we didn't have to reduplicate those.
Any other questions?
So Hyle had a question, so Hyle, what was it?
He was just pointing at Jennifer.
Oh, okay.
He was helping
Okay.
her out.
I sit my,
All right, I mean, we got a lot more to talk about with that, but we're gonna move forward, just kind of start scheduling this out to see what it looks like. We'll be bringing things back.
What was
Yes,
our annual hauling cost right now?
our annual hauling cost is how much, Jeff? $500,000?
As you said, like 550,000.
Yep.
All
Half
right,
a,
so I understand this is a big investment. How many communities could we serve if we were treating?
well, that's what he's gonna design the tanks big enough to hold. And, as our leachate goes down as we close, the
Yeah.
tank level will even hold more.
Yeah, that's,
But the communities, what leachate do they have?
yeah.
You know,
Well,
they're gonna have.
other landfills, I would assume.
Well, yeah, other
So we're gonna be
landfills,
safe.
they're gonna treat their, I'm sure other landfills are gonna
So
invest in.
I think you have a couple of potential sources, and you have to do, in my mind, you have to do a little bit of market research.
Uh-huh.
But obviously, the first one would be landfills that don't have this kind of treatment or don't want to invest in that. And then there's certain, I think, wastewaters, and that's where I think Jeff talked about the spoiled beverages. They're very
Oh,
easy wastewater
oh,
to
right.
deal with. So you have to be careful what you put in, because obviously you have an investment that we talk about pretty significant, that you want to find wastewaters that will not be detrimental to the system that you have, and that might even help the treatment on the leachate by itself, because it's kind of is diluted, and then you don't have some certain strong concentrations, which will then improve the effluent quality even further, because the performance of the RO is a percent reduction. So if you
Okay.
go with a high number and you have percent reduction, you still get you reduce significantly. But if you go with a diluted number, then the end result will be even better.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? David?
Yep.
This might not be for you, Doc, but if we have legislators in Washington and they're merry band of hippies that keep making up new things that are bad for us, okay? I'm just saying it how I feel it is, and how a lot of people that don't understand the science of it feel that it actually is. We didn't know the next thing, so this is the best, and I'm understanding that, and that makes sense. But is there any money out there from those folks who are putting these dates and these new
They're unfunded maintenance.
things in place, or they just get to sit there and say, hey, you gotta change this by this date, and the cost falls on you, because we deemed it, bad for the environment, or whatever the case
So,
is.
You remember the PFAS scare was back on the Huron River? You know, I'm a big fisherman, and it killed all kinds of fish down the Huron River. It got people sick, so it got all the legislators really excited about what's going on in the Huron River up in that South Lyon area. And it even was a different color in the water. One of my friends took a picture of the water, and I went, where are you at? So
And I
I
just
know
wanna say,
that's
I'm
how
not-
this all starts. It all starts about.
I'm not doubting the fact that this is nasty stuff and it's bad, and the more information we have, but as a municipality, big government can make decisions to make a change and make a name for themselves on C-SPAN, but where's the help for the communities and the people that it's going to affect? And as I said,
Actually,
Doctor, this
No,
might
I have,
not be-
I have actually an answer for you, because we tried that. So
Okay.
there's something that's called the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And we did prepare with an intent to apply. We then put a plan together for Eagle. The project was scored, unfortunately was not scored high enough to get funding.
Right.
The project that Jeff mentioned before in Marquette received funding from the State Revolving Fund, $7 million. Unfortunately, what happened here is we weren't scored high enough by the time that we wanted to go back and resubmit and see where we can maybe improve our scoring. Then Duo came in with a timeline that right now puts us in a time frame where we really don't have a chance to go for a second round of an application of the state revolving fund.
I see. Is this what we discussed, Jennifer, in the plan?
Yeah,
All right.
well,
But I think a more specific answer is sometime in the next week or two, Jeff and I will be meeting with representatives from Gary Peters and Senator Camilleri's office.
Okay.
And we will put that on the, they're always asking, what do you need? So that will be two of the items that'll be on there.
So dollar amount, so we can help fulfill your hopes and dreams.
Absolutely. That's a
Oh,
good
yeah, we're
question.
meeting with Riley Lintings, right, as well this month?
Yep,
Yeah.
Riley
Yep.
Linton
We
too,
can
yeah.
put that on her agenda as
Mhm.
well.
Okay, Ari, thank you.
Thank you.
Ari,
Thank you.
you know, I need you to send your digital copy to me, okay? So I can get it to council. I'm sure that they would like to look at it on their terms, so. All right,
Thank you.
let's go, Dave Skirdo, what's your update for tonight, please?
Being in the middle of winter, there's not a lot going on. I know the two cannabis applications, the one at the Riverview Commons, that needed a lot split, the former Coney site, they both seem to have stalled. There were 3 business licenses issued in January, one for El Zarabi Restaurant on King Road, one for Rivabella Pizza on Horry Road,
It was awesome pizza, by the way. Free
Oh, I've
plug.
heard so many good things.
Yes, we got it.
and then Innovative Body Works in Fort Street.
What about Brewster's, when they open it up?
They should be coming anytime. I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. They're really
I got a hold of
going.
the corporate office, they're supposed to send me the name of the manager of the store, and they haven't done it yet.
Okay. And
Okay,
then finally, they got the riverfront plan for the 5 cities. The final versions, they're anticipating the end of February.
Great. Next.
They're dumping
So Ohio.
donuts anywhere
Oh,
coming?
sorry.
So Ohio, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
So Ohio's birthday? Whoa! He's here on his birthday. What a committed engineer.
Anything for you here.
He's old enough to drink now.
Yeah.
As Dave mentioned, the weather's not helping the projects. We have a water main that's going to be started hopefully when the weather breaks. We have lead services to be replaced. And of course, we're finalizing the permit renewal for a dual tunnel. Hopefully that project is reality. And we received a correspondence from the concrete sectioning contractor that he's willing to hold this price at 0 increase.
Wow.
So I'll be bringing that in front of the council next meeting to extend this contract for this coming season.
Thank you.
And we have a drain at the golf course that we've got to install. Got that one.
That's for compliance issue, yes.
Why don't you give them an update, rest of council on that?
Council, yeah, we had we have a visit from Eagle every 5 to 7 years, and they just kind of look at the regulatory of how we store chemicals and how we wash our equipment and our carts and such, and they weren't happy that the cart wash is going to the grass and to the Franken Pullet. So we had to put a drain in front of our cart building to catch it, and it'll be drained into a drain through a oil separator into the sanitary sewer. So that's gonna be
Who is this?
Eagle made us do this.
It's
So,
just dirt and grass and water.
we have one down. Scott's gonna have to do the same thing. However, his is gonna be a little bit easier because it was already done before and was just not updated, so he's gotta just update it, so that there'll be no expense there, but there's gonna be a sizable expense to golf, so we have to do it because we submitted, CE Rain submitted the drawing of how it's gonna be fixed, and they approved it, so we can't wash any carts until we get that drain installed, so.
Great.
All right, Jennifer, last but not least.
Sure. Not a lot to report, but we did just complete the first quarter groundwater and surface water sampling. So the results will be back within about 5 weeks. And we don't expect any issues, but just keep me in the loop there. And then we're working on the leachate treatment project, so that will keep us busy for the next little bit. We've also started looking at the gas system for the next drilling project and expansion of the gas collection system.
How many wells are you guys looking at, Jennifer, right now?
There's about 10 on the list that we're looking at.
Okay.
We'll have to look at budgets and schedule compare that
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You don't need it tonight.
All right.
Any other business?
Your Honor,
I'm good here.
Councilman Workman?
I think we should look at canceling the landfill committee. We go into great detail at our council meetings. We don't have any major projects, we're shutting down. Probably the last big project we're going to be doing is this leachate system. And I think that it's just, to go into this detail on a council meeting anyway, I think it's just repetitive. So I think we need to do away with it today.
Is that something we need to take action on, or, we've canceled them already for lack of agenda items, because obviously we concentrate mostly now on these
I feel
types
like
of
we
meetings.
vote on that, right? When we
If you want to dissolve it, you'd want to vote.
Yeah.
Okay. It's ad hoc meeting committee anyway, right?
Yeah.
But,
Resolve it.
okay. We can put that on the agenda. Anybody else?
Just an announcement. On Wednesday, 12th at 6 PM, the Riverview Brownfields Committee will be meeting for anybody who's interested.
What's that date?
The 12th,
Okay.
Wednesday, 6 PM.
I'll be skiing.
No, you won't.
I'll be in Boyer.
I gotta be there, you gotta be there. You know what, I'm going with you, Brian.
Anything else? Now it's time for public comment. You all right back there?
Yep.
Okay.
Still awake.
With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. No.
No motion needed.